I've gotten everybody Taco Bell way too many times.
Too many times. Well, I remember when you made me have the blazing wing sauce, and that was the first day there. That was my initiation. You guys told me you were going to kick me out on the street if I didn't eat the hottest wing. And guess what? I had 2.
Very nice.
2 more days.
I appreciate that name.
Yeah, and good times with some good people.
Yes, indeed. And now 7 years later, here we are about to cast our good friend here in the bottom left-hand side of the map. It is, for Psystorm, Nina.
And her opponent in the Northeast, the red Protoss player. He is MCanning.
Only one of these players will ascend onto the Texan echelon of North American players.
Oh yeah, and you're talking about it. Both players had a bit of a warm up. We've got a lot of games going. I think they said they got 4 streams for the Americas games today. So there's so much StarCraft happening. Obviously, we had quite a few fun matches in Europe earlier, and hey, today really did end up being the day of upsets, didn't it? And I think it's because we had too united of a front on our predictions.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, yeah, I think we could have mixed it up a little. Oh! That was
cool. It's like 2 fish just swimming through the ocean, but like, they're both really, really, like aerodynamically streamlined, and they just bump into each other and like, okay, I can't actually go past you. One of us has to turn in order for us to move. No, we don't get to see that very often.
Very often, not at all. I mean, it probably takes you clicking on the opposing end at the exact same time or something like that, to where they meet in the exact same.
It's a frame perfect
or something. Yeah,
frame perfect probe edge grab, the dream. Cool. So this series already starts off with an absolutely wild opening.
Yeah, it's a mystical day, Nate.
That's true. It's been a very funky day. Mm-hmm. Been a very funky day. As Nina's gonna bring that probe back down. Throws a little pylon on the ramp, being annoying, I suppose, or just blocking movements. And MCanning will respond in kind right as the stalkers finish. And of course, you're left with the choice. You're gonna shoot the pylon down, or are you going to try and chase the probe? Little mini game of chicken, but nothing super crazy. Those probes do not get stuck on each other, so thankfully we've gone back to reality.
Yeah, they both click on the minerals this time around, or at least one of the players chooses to. So the probes do not get stuck. There's gonna be a Nexus going on the side of the can here, the All-American Protoss, and a shield battery as well right away.
Yeah, for PvP, it feels weird because I could try to do this analysis thing that nobody will care about because I'm not a Protoss player. But the fun part is I can already throw out my fake weak analysis and just say it's MCanning and Nina, who both really like to do things their own way when it comes to basically every matchup. If both players went for Robo Facility, Robo Bay, and went Speed Prism, Disruptor Drop, Rush against each other at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised. It would, I'd be like, yeah, no, that sounds like the kind of thing that would happen in a Nina game. That sounds like what would happen in an MCanning game. Conversely, if it was some sort of weird proxy into something else funky going on, that I think relies in the same spot. Do I think both players will go charge a lot of Mortal Archon +1/+2? Probably not. That's just not really the kind of styles that you see. They can both do it, but more often than not, they both like micro-intensive unit compositions, I think, is the big thing to keep in mind. So we should be looking forward to seeing fights like that, maybe a cheeky sentry move. Who knows?
Yeah, and that is very much a North American flair thing, it seems, right? And Ben was saying, for example, last game when we were having a similar discussion, like that recall is not a usual response either. But it's going to work out well. I mean, given the circumstances, obviously the better response would have been to have a probe ready to block the Adepts from ever coming in the first place. And MCanning will get actually 6 probes for his trouble, so a great start. Let's see if Nina can answer in turn. But
yeah, that's really big. That's why the probe sits on top of the ramp. Throw down the battery. Adepts can go through units, but they can't go through buildings. So throw down the shield battery. Adepts are forced to retreat, and 6 probes lost this early is definitely painful. I mean, both players are going for reasonably quick expos, but Protoss is one of those. I think Protoss really, you get into a lot of these situations where you stop building workers because you're at like 44, when you're ready to do your thing, right? You're ready to start warping in, build out, try to attack. If you're going to do a 2-base strategy, you're not usually oversaturating your first 2 bases a whole lot past, unless you actually think you can get your 3rd base relatively quickly. So it can affect a little bit in the build order, but I don't think it's going to end up being a huge problem here so far. Just a nice little grab to start things for the Can fam.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that has net him just a 3-worker lead. It should be maybe a little bit higher, but Nina perhaps a little bit more consistent on the worker production. Both players are going to be taking their 3rds at the same time. And back to that thought on North America, Nate. Ben was saying maybe like, yeah, it's a thing of like, you don't want to be the 2nd best at something. So you just do your own thing and then you're the best at it. Oh, one of them gets through. I mean, it's a magical day. And that the other shade actually gets expertly canceled by Nina. So she recognizes only one got through. She cancels the other shade. Very, very cool. We'll get 2 probes for her troubles. But I think it's not even that necessarily. I think for a lot of players, myself included, and I think fair to speak for you as well on this front, it's just more fun to play the game if you're figuring out your own style and your own things to do, right?
Yeah, and I think that for a big part of that, it also has to do with if you actually do carve out something like that can give you an edge over other players consistently, that's a really big deal, It's
that feels good, yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably has a little to do with competitive business culture for individuals.
Yeah, I think very little. I think in my career as a player, I cared a lot less about how much or obviously I cared about winning. I think you have to care about winning to be anywhat competitive. But I think my main priority was let me do something cool. Let me like make something new, discover something, right? Like I think you've done stuff like that in the past as well. Like for example, I remember you had this build where you had the Cyclone rush when Cyclones first came out with the upgrade.
Oh, yeah.
You would float a barracks proxied, and then you would pick up units. Like stuff like that is awesome, and it's just so fun to discover it first and to be at the forefront of that. And yeah, it's a different kind of reward.
Yeah, I think it's also fair to say Nina, MCanning, both content creators, both people who broadcast and stream on Twitch, and to continue down what you've been talking about as we have an observer picked off by MCanning. For me, it was also just about if I'm going to be playing this game and my priority is being entertaining or making content rather than I want to be a professional who beats everybody all the time.
Yeah,
I always thought, well, what can I do that would make me stand out, right? What makes you look different from other people? And I remember for Nina, the first, was Colossus drops, and I think that's probably still a thing that she loves to do. Yeah. For MCanning, it's the disruptors. And for me it was battle cruisers. It's like, hey, why would you want to watch MCanning play StarCraft? It's because he's going to do some crazy stuff with DTs and disruptors. That's what you tune in for. So even if he's not necessarily winning the championships, still super fun to come in and watch, because I've seen both of these players win some absolutely disgusting games from very far behind with insane micro, and that's why they do it.
Hells yeah, could not agree more. Now as this game develops, the Can does have and look at that, like these pylons are exactly what we're talking about, right? Like what a cool solution that gives us something to talk about. But it's like obviously the intent is to make extra chokes for those zealots to go through if they want to go up the ramp. And again, Nina without zealots, so she says, okay, I'm not gonna have zealots to buffer, but I'm gonna solve this a different way than most players would. And look at the Can, he can't go through. I mean, it works, it's beautiful.
It's highly unusual. And the aggressive link forward, though, some force fields will shave off a bit of the stalkers, but that does give a little bait for the disruptor. Gets a zealot kill and hits the Archon, but not much else. And I feel like we've already been vindicated in our very long conversation about unique play styles, because we are literally seeing it play out in front of us. The little cheeky pylons on top of the ramps, just basically saying, yeah, if you want your zealots to go through, they're going to waste their charge on the pylons themselves. Or if you try to manually go behind, well, as you said, choke points makes it very difficult to use those melee units.
Yes, indeed. So that is a very cool, very creative solution from Nina. And of course, there's always bumps in the road as well. I remember one time that Nina was trying to make war prisms with speed and loading Archons inside as a response to Muta. That one didn't go so well, Nate, but the thought was there.
Yeah.
You have to try stuff.
With what is it that they say is you can't success comes after failure, right? It's something that you learn to grasp when you know what it's like to screw up or make mistakes. And I think it's a pretty I don't know. It doesn't get talked as much about when people screw things up, but most of the coolest stuff that you've seen is not the first time that someone tried to do it.
Of course not. Yeah, it took a lot of screwing up, probably, especially if it's in front of our screens. At this point in time, as these players are playing at a very high level, and we are going to see what happens here. Nina does have almost exclusively Stalkers, a huge blink forward, identifying that there was only one Disruptor, but the Zealots are in plenty. Oh, another Disruptor shot coming down onto a lot of the Zealots of MCanning. The answer from MCanning in his own Disruptor shot, whiffing mostly against the Stalkers. Blink has been spent, however, so one Stalker will pay the price on the side of Nina, who now has a very strong, I don't know about that blink, but she will have a very solid position here. And now she can't blink back, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't know about that blink aggressively. I think she had a stronger position had she not taken that blink aggressively and just used blink one at a time to try and micro against the Zealots. It's a crazy game.
Yeah, a bit of an overextension with the Stalkers. The beginning of the first fight, I was like, damn. I mean, the force fields didn't really do much. MCanning's only Disruptor shot landed inside of the force fields. But every single unit that Nina's had, I mean, she's been completely chased down trying to get back over. Now has to recall into the main. I mean, 2 Immortals with a huge Zealot Warp in. And of course, the Prism there means there can be a little bit of juggling going on. And as we know, Immortals absolutely blow Stalkers to hell and back. And with the Zealots tanking, getting up in the face of the army, MCanning has taken a monstrous supply lead, 136 to 83. I say that, he's already over 150.
Yeah, pretty cool SimCity here with the cannons and the batteries on the side of Nina. Will start repairing there, here, and everywhere, as Ben would like to say. And yeah, I mean, things are looking fantastic for the cannon. It's a little bit sad for Nina because she had such a strong opening after the initial part of that fight, like you were pointing out. I think she needed to just not blink in front for no reason, right? Like there was so many Zealots there. She already had the position that she wanted. And once you sit next to their base with all of your Disruptor shots available, with your blink available, then you're sitting pretty there. You're just doing pretty damage to MCanning's economy, and it will be very difficult to dislodge you. But if you use your blink right away, then you can't blink to run away from the Zealots that are going to be surrounding you. So it's just exposing yourself at that point. And unfortunately for Nina, that might net the can a victory in this game 1.
Yeah, it's just tough, right? You have a huge supply gap. A lot of the units have been pulled towards the other ways, and I will say it is 20 probes difference because MCanning's up to 5 bases. So even if Nina does stall this out, MCanning's 5th is finishing, so he's got a massive income lead. He has the +3 attack already done. So for Nina, it pretty much completely boils down to perfect blink micro and landing the purification novas from her disruptors onto every single stalker of the opponent, and it just doesn't feel like that's unfortunately going to be able to happen for her in this map. MCanning continues to press the issue, still has the disruptors alive inside of Nina's base, going for a big shot on the stalker. She does manage to blink around it, but that's where the Zealot reinforcements coming in make it so tough. You want to play with just stalkers, that is great, but once those Zealot numbers get up there with the upgrades and that army composition's well rounded out, we can really see where MCanning was able to make things incredibly tough, and despite being routed, still has triple the army supply of Nina.
Yeah, never mind. I mean, if we look at the map, right, it's all red. MCanning has done a fantastic job of continuing to expand behind this. So even if the supplies were even, he would have a massive lead in terms of just real estate and the ability to kind of extend further into this game. Nina will recognize that finally, and the can will close the first game for America, even though Nina's also American.
Well, you know what? I guess the takeaway there is that America wins no matter what, Cats. So I'm sure some weird people are very excited about that. As yeah, wow, what a clean game from MCanning, though. I really felt like Nina was in a great position early on. You got that great fight, picked off the disruptor, landed her purification novas perfectly. But MCanning, not only did he manage to make that defense, and I feel like it's really easy to overextend into an opponent that has charged Zealots, but you make that overextension, you get caught, and MCanning had the 4th base finishing when that happened. So Nina didn't just go for an attack that didn't work. Nina forced the issue while she was behind a base, and I mean, from that point forward, MCanning was like, yeah, okay, I just leverage my economic advantage, constantly attack you from 7 different directions, get a Dark Shrine because I'm MCanning, and well, that's all they wrote for that first one.
Yeah, some very cool maneuvers, but this is kind of what I feared at the same time, is when you kind of overcomplicate things. That's, that was one blink too many. It was just too flashy. It was like if there was a disruptor or something, or predominantly disruptors to snipe or something like that, like I could see an aggressive blink. But just for the sake of it, just to get there faster, to, you know, like I don't even know what it is. It's just over eagerness, right? Or just trying to play faster or do things and non-stop and keep up the pressure or something of the sorts. But sometimes just chilling is the answer.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to pump the brakes, say, okay, I took a nice big fight. I'm going to take my 4th now, right? Maybe add another level of tech, mix in some charge zealots or something, get another robo, whatever it is, and do the what's that thing that they say? The when you're ahead, try to get more ahead or something like that.
Yeah, that can definitely work pretty often.
I've heard of that. I've heard that rumor.
Most certainly. All right, well, new game, Romanticide, one of the more defensive maps in the map pool, and in the bottom right hand side, it's the blue Protoss player again for Storm. It is Nina.
And her opponent in the Northwest, the red Protoss player, he is MCanning. I love seeing all the MCanning spam in the chat. I'm seeing people calling out the Canimals. That has got to be the coolest. I don't know if MCanning has capitalized on this already. He's got triple my IQ, so I certainly couldn't question that I'd thought of it first. But Canimals, I love that.
I love that. It's fantastic.
That's a great name for your subs. That should be his thing. Boom.
Is it not? And then, like, where did you get this?
People in chat were just saying it. I mean, it immediately makes me think of the yogurt, right? But you've got huge brand presence there. That's baked into the minds of pretty much every child who watched TV in the US. So Canimals, boom, get the yogurt sponsorship. That's what I'm saying. All that protein, baby. MCanning's twice as jacked. And obviously, you know, you get yourself a second yacht off all those yogurt sales. So what can I say? It's beautiful sometimes when you just look at MCanning and you can just see, you know, the mysteries of the universe unraveling in front of him. If only my eyes were capable of seeing what his can.
Certainly. And wow, Nina actually might be able to. Yeah, she will actually pick up the probe of the cannon on defense there. She is not saturating her gases aptly, though, as she has 20 workers right now on the mineral production. So, yeah, still not fixed. This is a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, not minding all of the gas there, as the probe is going to head down towards the natural. We talk about sometimes like what those first few units that get built are, and MCanning going for a bit more of a gas heavy with Stalker Sentry. So wants to have that hallucinated Phoenix Scout early on, I would say. You're not really relying on a force fields from one sentry to save you in the early game.
That's extremely uncharacteristic, though, and that is the kind of thing that I would struggle to understand. Now it's finally fixed, quote unquote, right? Like, there could be an argument that someone concocts where they think, okay, like, but maybe she really, really wanted more minerals and almost no gas at all. That's fine, but like accruing a gas bank for later on, if your build is not primed to use it right away, is probably still better than getting minerals from the 19th and 20th probe in particular. Those guys are just not mining nearly enough to justify themselves. Even cutting the probes for a faster nexus might be better.
Yeah, that's the amount of analysis that's gone into whether or not you should have more than the 16 workers on a base is far over my head these days. But I never minded the 17th and 18th. But past that, I know it falls off crazy hard. Crazy hard. Hey, look at that proxy pylon, by the way. Nina throwing one down at the gold base outside of MCanning's. Is it for something nefarious, or is it just there? We'll find out in a few minutes, I suppose.
Why not both? As the Mexican girl would say.
I am not going to, I'm not going to be upset with that at all. Take my salsa and my guac cats. Thank you very much. I don't know if that's what that commercial was about, but those are just two things that I love. Yeah. Those are just two things that I love. So
I think there's a follow-up of like hard or soft tacos. I don't quite remember what she was choosing between. Oh, Nina, not paying attention. Actually, we'll lose one stalker for her troubles. And
I was getting the vibe that she wanted to be aggressive with just a lot of stalkers and maybe blink, which it seems like it's kind of there. She did get a few adepts, and there is no gateway at that pylon, so it's not fast warp ins. The force fields are going to grab her, though. Oh my God, 3 stalkers get caught. the shield battery is there for MCanning too, so the trades are going to be a whole lot easier. This is a lot to lose early, especially.
A lot.
I mean, the Adepts managed to get behind. They killed 3 probes.
Yeah, 5 Stalkers is not enough to one-shot a probe. 4 is the perfect number, so yeah, I mean, Nina tried to get in there and try to salvage the situation some way, somehow. I'm very surprised that the supplies are as close to each other as they are. And Nina actually has a worker advantage, of course, after that, but she sacrificed so much for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not a cheap investment, right? When we think about MCanning last game, sent 2 Adepts in, got 6 probes, and didn't have to lose anything else. That's a nice trade when you look at something like that. But Nina was playing up front like she already had Blink, except, it's 4-minute mark in the game, so you can't really have Blink that early. She is getting it now with +1. That's great. Like the cannon up front, DTs are going to pop up eventually if this game goes long enough, so I'm never going to be sour about that. And CanFam's got a Prism going, so he's taking his 3rd, but he wants to keep the pressure on. And Nina's going to take her 3rd, but based on the investments into that tech that we've been talking about, she has the cannon for detection. She doesn't have a robotics facility, so the possibility of her bringing out a Warp Prism isn't even on the table.
Yes, indeed. And I was distracted because I eyed the chat for a second, and there's a wonderful pasta that I want to share with you, Nate. And
hit me up with that pasta.
Well, let's see what happens here first. Actually, the 3rd might be under a little bit of trouble, but right after I'll hit you with the pasta, I think you will enjoy it. MCanning with a very solid attack here will force the 3rd to be canceled from Nina. This could be enough for the Khan to be like, okay, that's good enough. Let's back away. I am taking my own 3rd. The longer he denies the 3rd from Nina, the better. And that's exactly what he's going to do. And by the way, maybe if Nina thought there's not an Immortal there, that base doesn't get canceled. And instead it's contested.
Yeah, it's options rather limited. The Blink Stalkers can be really good, but when you blink away, I think of it like any unit that kind of relies on kiting. You're giving up whatever it was that you were standing next to when you blink away. So if it's the base, it's the base. That's not something that you want to have to restart when MCanning's is done. He's ready. He's set up. His observer sees all the Stalkers coming for Nina. And man, you know what you're talking about not having observers. The hallucinated Immortal is still something that's been kind of annoying. I think she's maybe realized that it's not a real one. The targeting has been on the sentries. The real Immortal does show up, however, and that firepower, of course, packs a wallop. Wow. She has a lot of Stalkers and playing very cautiously against this army.
Yeah, beautiful control there by Nina. And like you said, identifying perhaps that the Immortal is a fake. So very, very well done to catch her back up. I mean, the resources lost up at this point. Nina is ahead after that. So that was some crazy good trades after the start of the game that was definitely not favoring her in the slightest. And now time for the pasta. You ready, Nate?
Let's go.
Who is MCanning? For the blind, it is light. For the hungry, it is bread. For the sick, it is the cure. For the loner, it is the companion. For the sad, it is joy. For the prisoner, it is freedom. For the poor, it is the treasure. For the debtor, it is forgiveness. For me, my first love.
I cry every time.
I cry every time. Had you heard that pasta before?
You know what? I've read a lot of MCanning pastas in my days, but I have not read that one. All I can tell you is that I heard he had dinner with John Cena, and I don't have any proof of this, but legend says it happened. It's MCanning, so
yeah, I mean it's
probably
right.
True. Shout out.
It's
to
more
MCanning.
like John Cena had dinner with MCanning.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but this pasta was pretty good. My favorite pasta so far was a Lambo pasta that was a prayer of sorts, but yeah, no way I can replicate that one.
Yeah, they've got. The pasta game has been stepped up throughout DreamHack Masters. They've got the bots that clear out the easy ones, so you have to actually be kind of creative or change some of the words. The Prism kind of flies straight into those cannons, by the way. Nina doing a very solid job defensively, having 2 cannons in the main base, just saying, nope, absolutely not going to deal with it. Sometimes 1 cannon, you can get away with it, but that's when you'll have somebody like MCanning drop 4 DTs, just try to snipe it, do a cute Prism micro to get around it. Nope, not even close to happening there. So Nina gets her disruptors out, and we didn't have a problem with this part of the last game. The Stalker disruptor part was great. It was when she won a fight, she just went too far forward. So as long as that doesn't happen again, this one should be a fairly good matchup for her. I still like her in a macro game without big mistakes like that. But MCanning, he's always calm. He's always poised. He's always If he had like a buff, if he was like an XCOM character on your squad, he'd be that guy that can't get rattled, you know? Like when someone panics, when a stray bullet flies by or something like that, and he's like, no. He's like, no.
Yeah.
He's fearless.
That is exactly him, yes. I also love about Nina's approach, by the way, is that she is taking the base in the back rather than the one in the front, because the one in the front is much more wide open, whereas this one there's a lot more chokes. So it's a lot more consistent with her approach of going for disruptors, right? Like if you want to attack into this base, you're attacking into a choke. If you want to attack into the other bases, there's also chokes all over the place. So she's gonna delay taking the base that is gonna be harder to take before she gets a critical mass of disruptors, and she can cover more space in those more wide open areas. So for her 5th, it's fine, but I like the approach of taking this one as her 4th.
Yeah, there's only one thing I don't like about the current setup, and it's what I've been loving about it, what MCanning's been doing. Like Nina, you want to play with a lot of Blink Stalkers, Disruptors? Totally fine. I don't mind that at all. She did get charge, but I would love to see some of those random zealots get warped in by her and just thrown around a bit, because I think that was really nice for MCanning with his counterattacks and his harass ability to chase down. Blink Stalker can be a fun army composition to play with the Disruptors. But I want to see a little bit more of that harass sent out to the sides. MCanning was able to expand so freely and so easily in the last game. And look, he's already going up to be one more base higher than Nina, which he did throughout the entirety of that first map too.
Yeah, most definitely. The good thing for Nina here, I suppose, or for this game in general, is that it's gonna prolong itself to where the most important thing is gonna become the battles rather than the economy itself. Both players already nearing max. I don't think that an extra base will speed either player past that point, so it still will come down to the engagements. Now, one thing for Nina, as both players are getting the blink on the DTs, is to mix it up. Like, I'm not sure that just Stalker Disruptor is gonna cut it anymore. Oh, that's actually huge from the camp. And there's also an Observer available, so these DTs are gonna filter right away.
Yeah, Nina loses the Observer, the Prism, and 4 DTs. Big pickup for MCanning, but she is attacking on the northeast side. Of course, the Disruptors going to be 2-tap in the static defense here. You can really see that firepower, of course. Really nice to have. The rest of the army isn't there to defend against it, but MCanning says, okay, fine. I'm going to attack the southwest, make this big push in. Nina's Disruptor is getting just rallied in a little bit too far on that base. And both of the outer peripheral expansions under attack. I do believe the one in the northeast should be okay with that cannon. So Nina's going to push over to MCanning's 3rd. Zealots are getting warped in. And of course, the nice part about having this many Stalkers is with a low Zealot count, it's not too hard to just shave these guys off the front of the army. The Disruptors are going to try to zone. Does get one of MCanning's, and Nina's going to keep pushing forward as MCanning takes out 23 of her probes, and he's going to make his way over to her 3rd base in the middle of all this. It's just turned into like, I don't want to say base trade because I don't know if both armies are really big enough to call it that, but it's a huge, they're just absolutely trading blows. No one's blocking. It's just haymakers all day.
Yeah, I like Nina's position a little bit better though. She has enough of an army here that it will pose a little bit of trouble to the Disruptors. The Zealots will, however, the Disruptors now, no, Nina will kill her own Zealots with that Disruptor shot actually. And 3 Disruptors, I think, are going to be good enough for the cleanup. On the other side, Nina retreated unnecessarily, so she needs to at least take that base. Now recognizes that, goes back in for it, and now tries to hit the front as well. And MCanning donated a few Zealots. Many more Zealots now, actually, but earlier also donated a few Zealots to start the fight, and then those Warpins were not going to work, so the force of Nina was mostly unanswered. Whereas on the other side, Nina had enough Disruptors to kind of dislodge the force of MCanning. So this game looks to be going swimmingly for Nina so far.
Yeah, when we talked about the overextension last game, we didn't quite get there this time, especially with that Disruptor shot landing on all of the Zealots. I think those are the units you're most worried about with the Stalkers. You can kind of micro against everything else. Zealots, they just run in your face and you know, they tear your face off. But Nina definitely has the Stalker count advantage and the Disruptor count advantage for the moment, it seems. So she can continue to bring that pressure forward, and that's it. MCanning taps out. We're going to game 3.
Yeah, and that blink forward, risky only if there is a Disruptor that just spawned and is walking down the ramp or something like that, right? But much more warranted than the previous game because you know you're blinking in to kill one Disruptor. You're not blinking into many Zealots. You're blinking into Stalkers mostly. Stalker against Stalker is going to be fine. You get the one shot on the Disruptor, then it's a great opening. So wonderful job from Nina, bringing back a game that looked to be a little bit, at least, in the favor of MCanning and tying up the series.
Yeah, really, really well done. And to be fair, we talked about what Nina was doing right, what was going well for her. That was it. In the first game, it was the same thing. And it was really just, she took a really good fight, went too far forward, got caught, and MCanning ran away with that first map, right? And then in game 2, I'm not going to say more conservative because it wasn't. They both were like, I'm gonna do a big attack and try to kill you. And then Nina said, I'm going to do a big attack and try to kill you. Except, you know, the Zealots, yeah, they'll rip a lot of stuff apart, but they don't get to the good stuff quite fast enough. Whereas, you know, Nina's stalkers were blinking all over the place, sniping left and right. And just having that stalker count advantage, being able to micro away once the Zealots were removed from the equation, it was just such an overwhelming force that, well, that's a little bit more in line with what we expect out of Nina when she's able to do her thing.
Yeah, most definitely. That looked clean. Great snipes on the disruptors as well as the game transpired. And now Jagannatha will be the grounds for our final battle. Nate, it's a pretty cool map, kind of turtley it can be. Maybe Stargate time. Doubt it, right? Like these players are too stalkery, I think.
Yeah, I feel like against. It's like I know both of them have done it against Zerg because obviously, why wouldn't you with the way that things are nowadays? But in PvP, no, I don't get that vibe from either of them. I'm sure it's going to be more of the same of what we've been seeing so far, which I don't have any complaints about. I personally, when they first had the disruptor, where I don't know if you remember, but like they had to patch it so that it couldn't immediately shoot when it was dropped out of a prism. And before that patch, if you guys don't want to go back in time, if you get a time machine, you're like, Nate, what's some of the coolest SC2 metas to watch and not play? Watching professional PvP with the original disruptor was absolutely some of the wildest stuff I think we've ever had in the game.
Well, what was the original one?
Just the stalker bowling. Just when every PvP was mass stalker disruptor. Before the disruptor had any nerfs. It was, at least from a spectator perspective, it was one of the funniest. It was one of the most fun metas to watch. Mostly because it was, you know, it was just us and other casters just going the whole entire game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, disruptors do have that effect to the day. At some point, that effect got nerfed a little bit. It didn't last long, but there was a point in time where disruptors had a radius, and based on the first unit that they collided with, their shot would go off. That was awful.
That was terrible. Those were the dark days. Well, don't time travel. If you don't go far enough, you'll run into that one, and you'll wonder why why you wasted your time travel to watch old StarCraft games live when we have the internet. But I digress. Here we are, loaded into Jagannatha, and in the bottom left, we have the blue Protoss player representing Psystorm. She is Nina.
And in the top right-hand side of the map, it is the red Protoss player. It is MCanning.
So yeah,
I've just noticed Nina's TV has a jellyfish. Like a jellyfish? Yeah.
Like a screensaver or hang on?
Yeah. I guess it is. Yeah.
I'm zooming it up.
Look at it. What? Oh, it's no longer jellyfish.
Oh,
right.
That's like I don't know like what the different ranges are on different people's TVs, but mine just does like the city skyline screensaver. If you just leave it on, and I don't know. Actually, jellyfish just kind of swimming around is also pretty chill, right?
Pretty cool. Relaxing. Yeah, mine doesn't move usually. The screensavers. Yeah. Anyhow,
I like it. Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm also on the Thalassophobia game too, so I don't know if I would want to walk into my living room and see that in the middle of the night. Oop, the probe almost getting tased. Look at that. Some baiting going on here. Oh, almost goes it. Wow.
You know Nina's gonna go for it. It's a question of who will get it, and MCanning anticipates it and
you had to go for it. When you got it down that far, you have to try to finish it, right?
I mean, I disagree. Like, I wouldn't go for it because I would feel like my opponent expects. I mean, your probe is just as red as his, and your opponent has to be expecting it. But it is Nina,
but it's about
MCanning. Like, you know, either one of them would go for it.
But it's a power move, though. You know. Of course, the fact that it doesn't work definitely sucks. But if it had worked, boom.
Yeah,
1v1 when when you're against the whole mineral line.
Right? Like it should always be a different probe from MCanning that goes on forward. So you're always playing at a disadvantage if you're Nina there, and yet she's gonna go for it because she's gonna try to outplay to be flashier, right? And this is I think because if she gets it, everyone goes whoa.
Yeah,
and then that's great. But
well, in the words of another commentator I have much respect for, sometimes I like to NA StarCraft it's a bit like wrestling, cats. It's people do their signature moves.
Yeah,
they want to win the crowd over. Yeah, a little bit more than just speed run to the end of the game. And I'm not ever going to disrespect someone for doing something like that. Look at that, by the way, using the shades. I use the stones to destroy the stones. MCanning says I'm not worried about adept shades. I've got plenty of my own.
Yeah, Nina gets a lot of information out of this. I mean, that is a huge adept commitment from the Khan. Nina also has free reign to go or try to go inside the main, but MCanning is of course going to be ready with the probe, as he knows that there is 2 more adepts. They will now get recall to try and help on the defense. Nina will position a probe on top of her ramp to make sure that this doesn't happen. But hey, with that many probes blocking the way, 1 adept will make it through. Now the rest of them will actually go on top of the stalkers of Nina. Maybe a battery overcharge is in place here. The probes maybe getting ready to fight as well. Stalkers will trade very well against the adepts here of MCanning. So a little bit surprising of a shade when all things are said and done.
Yeah, after that, it's 4 adepts for 2 sentries and 2 probes. 5 adepts, excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, the sentries are valuable, and they are definitely important. But I'm not going to say that adepts are super important units in PvP. I will say if you build this many adepts, then losing them becomes important, just because you didn't spend the money on anything else. But I don't hate trading adepts for stuff that's valuable, but losing 6 for 2 sentries is... Ooh. Oh, man, and Nina actually does get 2 of these inside MCanning's base. So, on the flip side, not having those faster units still alive means Nina gets to do a little dance behind MCanning's probes.
Yeah, we'll get 3 probes. Can't really get anything else. Once the second adept dies, there is no opportunity to one-shot anything, so this adept will falter as well. I like this trade from Nina, for example. The other trade, yeah, on paper is not so bad, but like you were saying, the adepts will not scale well into the game. So even if you run away with 4 adepts or whatever MCanning ran away with originally, because it ended up being just the 2, it doesn't feel good because they're useless later on.
Yeah, and again, that's what I mean. Is like, I don't necessarily hate trading adepts because I mean, past the first 8 minutes, it's like Reapers, right? They just suck. Yeah. So yeah, you can use them for light harass. Maybe later on, there's better ways to do it. But yeah, definitely. You can see both of them like to take punches. No one's gonna sit back and just be like, I'm just gonna defend all game and just chill. You know, I'm just gonna turtle up. No, we don't really see that in these games. The American Protoss players love to get aggressive when they have the chance.
Yeah, most definitely. And of course, adepts, like Reapers, they kind of lose value as the game progresses because the other units are stronger, better range, and also like there is no more utility. Like 2 adepts are the perfect number, for example, to harass, which is what adepts are best at, right? Because you kill workers with 2 adepts. So the 3rd adept is already redundant. If you get 4 and you can split your shots, fantastic. But if you get 6 and you're killing, you're spending micro on the adepts to kill a probe with 6 adepts, then that's 4 shots going to waste per 6 adepts. And the greater the number grows, the worse that situation gets. So yeah, they're just not great as the game progresses.
Yeah, this is something I like though from Nina. I think this gels a little bit more with her play style. If she wants to play with stalkers and do stuff like this, well, okay, I thought she was going to try right click on the immortal at first, but got 2 stalkers instead at the start. And that's okay. Maybe I like it a little bit less now because that's a huge amount of damage to take from those immortals. But I was going to say the concept of the build, right? Putting the forward gateway, doing a huge blink stalker attack and macroing up behind it. That's classic Nina. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm like, okay, yeah, over the years, this is something that they've done a ton. Very good with it, very familiar with it. You keep a ton of pressure on. If you do pick off those immortals with that first shot, you can go back in later, get it again. And we might see her dive, but with charge being done and the number of zealots, I think that's becomes less likely by the minute.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you. I thought she was gonna go for the Immortal. I think she probably thought she was going for the Immortal as well. Like, I don't think she intended to shoot anything but the Immortal. But then the second shot is also not at the Immortal. That was weird. And just now, she postured forward to click on the Immortal and then ends up switching target to a Zealot. Maybe that's just indecision in the final moments. Maybe that's just mind gaming herself a little bit, thinking that the Immortal will get pulled back earlier. I don't even know what to attribute it to, but it's nice and surprising because I never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and if I'm looking at other things that are working in Nina's favor, at least in this situation, the +1 attack is almost done for MCanning. So Nina's had that attack upgrade advantage. It just, you know, the Stalker, a fully Stalker-based army is a bit squishy. Just, you know, they cost a lot of resources. They are not units you want to just throw away super casually. And charge lots head-to-head, if they actually blink on top to try to get the Immortal, they'll absolutely obliterate them. So Nina is going to be forced to make a move into something else with this setup. Cannons are being built back home because you're against MCanning. You know the DTs are coming eventually. And getting charge and +2. Now, will we actually see charge zealots be used in a significant number? I don't know, but look at this blink into the main base. Depowers a couple of the gateways. Just going to pick off a zealot or 2 or 3 and try to slowly blink out. And there's the big blink. So now moves like that, I can get behind.
Yeah, and that was a timely blink as well. If she actually had gone for the slower blink, which I also thought she was going to go for, those 3 Immortals would have caught up on the low ground, and then they would have punished those Stalkers, especially if they are not in plenty. So, yeah, good moves from Nina. She has accrued a little bit of a supply advantage here. Like you were mentioning, she has already the upgrade advantage. She now has the worker advantage as well by a margin of 10. So things are looking fantastic for Nina, and MCanning has an Immortal edge, but that is about it.
Yep, Nina's going to take that corner base, and this to me is also something I think really worth pointing out. MCanning has been dominant in the expansion game in this series. Even though Nina won the last game, MCanning had the 4th well before her. He had the 5th well before her. And in that first game, you know, like I said, she made that big push on 3 bases. MCanning already had a 4th when he defended it. So that was also monstrous. So the fact that she's on even economy, or actually has her 4th base finishing up even earlier than MCanning's, speaks volumes about the, you know, the level of comfort that I think she's been able to get into after that second game. Maybe took the nerves off and making some confident moves. Her Observer's going to fly in and get picked off. But what do you see? A relatively standard Mim Zealot, Immortal, Charge Lot, Archon, but disruptors are coming, and we both know eventually it's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of those eventually. Both players will also finish their 2-2, and it's already Nina starting her +3. Blink DTs on the side of MCanning. Nina finished her own Dark Shrine, or yeah, Nina is about to finish her own Dark Shrine, so we'll see if she opts for the same. And now, oh, a lot of those zealots will actually falter to the very first disruptor shot of the game. Still Nina with a good concave, but a lot of the Stalkers, unfortunately for her, are actually targeting the Nexus, which will not come close to falling. So MCanning with a higher complexity on his army and that amazing disruptor shot, trademark disruptor shot to start the fight, will get a huge edge up.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you said it. A trademark MCanning disruptor shot, and positions like that, when you're on the aggressive side, you have to be really mindful about what you're shooting at, because that Nexus lost all of its shields and 13 hit points.
Yeah.
So in a minute or two, when that bad boy recharges up, it'll all bend for not so much on the aggressive side. And now trying to defend that corner base is Nina. But like you said, this well-rounded army composition, much like a well-rounded breakfast cats, can get you through many tough days, as the Stalkers cannot push up the ramp into a mortal Charge Lot Archon. Does the damage that he thinks he can get away with and recalls out, as Nina's DTs actually hit MCanning's 4th base. So, or excuse me, the 3rd. So the detection is not here just yet. Observer is now going to show up. The Nexus will be saved. But, well, if there's one thing to take away from that, Nina's 4th was in huge peril, taking a lot of damage. She was warping in units to defend it, but being able to force that recall is so nice, because she actually didn't really lose many of her probes during that, which I was more concerned about. She's up almost 20 workers, which means now that she can get on the offensive again, she's got a lot of money to do so with, and she's building 3 disruptors at a time back home too.
Yeah, and just to put that in perspective, by the way, like if you know, Nina did start shooting at the Nexus a little bit before the army of MCanning showed up, but she lingered on and shot at it for much longer. So the Nexus lost 1,000 HP. A Stalker has 160 HP, right? So I mean, imagine that much damage placed onto the army of MCanning. Certainly, a lot more of it falls a lot quicker, and then there can be a snowball effect that happens. But instead, the Nexus ends up soaking up a lot. Still, Nina with that DT. Rambai on the other side of the map will equalize things. MCanning trying to be sneaky with a disruptor coming from the ramp. It will not connect this time around. And Nina finds herself, regardless of that Nexus blunder, with 45 or 35 or so supply ahead now.
Yeah. Oh, them probes paying off. MCanning does have a couple cheeky DTs. Find a lonesome disruptor out in the middle of the map. The observer is in siege mode, so Nina's like, all right, I'll kind of like shove back, grab my unit, and go back to the offensive side of things. She doesn't want the observer to accidentally wander too far forward and get picked off, since she knows MCanning has the DTs and there's a cannon there. So it's kind of in the perfect spot. Don't want to move it too much, and the disruptor siege continues. I like that she's expanding around the map too, because of where those DTs were chilling outside, where you would like normally take a third base in some games. She's yeah, nice setup.
Very nice. And of course, the Nova of the disruptor is time-based, which means if you are on the speed zone, your disruptor shot will actually go further than you would expect it to. So that's pretty cool that Nina was using that as a launch pad of sorts. And now she has a very strong position here. Good job retreating with those zealots as well. Now I think she could turn around and engage. Could have gotten a good shot onto the Immortals. Instead, go for the disruptors of MCanning, but still on retreat. Wow, juicy shots, Nate.
Very juicy shots indeed. Nina up almost 100 supply now after getting some massive purification novas across the opposing army. But that's where you've got to be careful, though. I mean, disruptors, the tide can turn. With how clumped up Nina's army is, 3 disruptor shots spread across that army would turn things around real quick. The Novas are going to start to trade again, and at least the Stalkers can kill the probes of MCanning in this position.
That's huge.
Yeah, MCanning can fall back as far as he wants, except that's his base, and now it's gone. So Nina doing a good job. You know, I love it. You know, I love talking about kiting units. It's like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that. But it's like, but on the defensive, if you retreat, that's, you know, you're giving up ground, and the ground in this situation was quite important. Nina takes the series 2-1.
Yeah, very, very well done.